Okay, welcome back. This is part 2 of my attempt at making a tutorial series for Crusader Kings 2 for the newer player. I'm going to dive straight in. We're at the opening screen, so I'm just going to go straight to single player, no mucking about. The purpose of this video is really to just do two of the sort of overriding points of this game, which is one is how do you choose a character or realm to play, which would be this screen, and then also to explain one of the key concepts of Crusader Kings 2, which is the idea of dynasties, and you need to kind of understand that, otherwise you might suddenly find your game ends. So the first point, how to choose a character or realm, is addressed on this page, where you have the whole world, or not the whole world, but the whole playable world, or most of the playable world view. In this case we're really talking kind of Europe. This is up here. You have all these buttons which give you different views. At the moment we have this terrain view, which is pretty but not too much use. So the first thing you should do is really go over to independent realms. Now what this has done now is it's basically colour coding the whole map according to the different realms that exist. Now a realm is just basically all of the land is controlled by one person. So if you have a King of England, his realm is all of this land made up of different counties within there, under his kingdom, under his kingship. Same with Scotland and same with France. However, if we focus in here to Ireland, you can see that these independent realms, as we've clicked up here, these are all just individual little counties here, and you can see they've got their own little borders around them, and they're all technically a different colour. However, they do appear to have used colours that very much blend into each other, which is not very clever. So you're really basically trying to decide at this point which size realm do you want to start as, and there's a concept of independence or not independent. So for instance, say you want to just start at the lowest level, which is a county. You click on a county, Ulster, and over here you get the Earl of Ulster, and that's his dynasty flag. Sorry, that's his dynasty flag. And you can decide I want to play as him. Okay, that means you will play as a guy who's in charge of the county of Ulster and is independent on his own. Okay. If, however, you went down over here, you could say I want to play as let's play as the Duke of Lancaster. But if you look at him, he's part of the kingdom, as we saw, of England. Okay, so if I want to play as the Duke of Lancaster up there, I'm going to have a bloke above me, and that's him, King Harold of England. So in other words, in this case, I'm not independent. I have a liege, and I'm his vassal. And if we click on him, you can select to play him, but then you'll see Duke Owen of Lancaster is his vassal. The game is therefore very different if you decide to play as an independent, such as this guy, the Earl of Ulster, or if you decide to play as someone who's not independent, they're actually under someone else, and you can tell all the time because there'll be two people there. That's the guy you're selecting to play, but he's not independent. That's, as it says there, your liege. Okay, so there's this whole sort of idea there of independence versus playing as part of a bigger unit. Whether you might own a county. Let's look at this one, for instance. Here, this is an independent realm, but it's actually two counties together formed as a duchy. In other words, whereas this was a count, if you look at the tooltip, this is just a county of Ossory, sits on its own. If you look at these two here, they're coloured the same and they're all bordered the same. That's because if you look at the tooltip there, they're both now described as the Duchy of Munster. That's because in this case both those counties are actually, whilst they're controlled by different people, like this guy is the Earl of Ormond, he actually has a boss who in this case is the Duke of Munster, and that shows you that is those two counties there. In other words, his realm, unlike the King of England, which was a massive realm of loads of counties, his realm is just two counties, and it's known as a duchy. So you could decide to play as him, which is a duchy, or you could just decide to play as the Earl of a county on their own. So then, if you want to try and work out, therefore, what you want to do, you can work out whether you want to play as an independent or you want to play as part of a realm. you can then use these buttons to split down the various different realms. So if you want to look at kingdoms, well, they blank out anything that isn't a kingdom. So if we focus back here, these are the kingdoms you can play as. So if you click there, you'll play as Philip of France. You'll be the king of all that. If you do that, you'll play as King Harold of England, and you'll play as all that. However, if you note over here, they're all blanked out. The reason they're blanked out is because there is no King of Ireland at this point. You can instead decide to play as a Duke, which is a smaller level. There he is there. We saw the Munster guy before. So you can play as him. There's Duke Munster, in which case you'll have one bloke as your vassal. And if instead you just want to play as an independent count, well then, these are all the independent counts that you can play as. Or not independent, these are the counts that you can just play as here. So this is kind of what you're trying to decide. Now my advice was always, I think, to start off is just play at the lowest level as an independent, which is why Ireland is a really, really good place to start, because there's lots of independent little counties, none of which on their own have any real individual strength, because they haven't all got together either as duchies or as ultimately a kingdom. And as I said in my first video, your aim might be to try and become the king of Ireland, which means you're going to own all these counties. And that would be where I would start this game. So to that end, let's just dive straight in and look at the opening screen, assuming you were to play as the Earl of Dublin, and explain the idea of dynasties. So let's click on that and then hit play. Okay, so we now have started the game. There we are, Earl Muchad of Dublin. That is who you've decided to play as. Your realm at the moment is simply the county of Dublin, and you are the Earl of Dublin. The game up here is paused at 1066. You can unpause it by hitting that or hitting the spacebar, but we're going to keep it all paused to start with, just to go through this part. Now, in part one of this whole series, I kind of dived straight in and said that assuming you were playing as Dublin, your aim might be to try and unite all of Ireland by becoming the king, and you're going to therefore go around and try and claim all this land. Okay, so that's kind of where your aim is. But one of the primary concepts of this game, and the first thing you have to care about, is the idea of dynasties. Now, dynasty just basically means family, and the kind of concept of this game is that your king, or in this case your Earl, is not going to live forever. This game runs from 1066 to the middle of the 1400s. He's not going to survive for that 400 years, therefore he's going to die and he's going to have successors. So the first thing you have to make sure is that your dynasty will be the ones who inherit this land. And by dynasty I just mean family, and this is the dynasty flag. So I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, but that is basically the dynasty that this guy is in. So therefore his father would be of that dynasty, and if we click on his family down here, because this is giving you all his various family, if you look at his children, let's click on his son is also of that dynasty. So the key thing at the moment to look at is that we, the Earl, own this county. If we were to suddenly kick the bucket, what do? Well, this guy is going to currently inherit, and he's our son, and if we click on his son, he's still our dynasty, therefore the game will continue. Say for some reason it'd be strange for it to have happened, but it could have done. Say for some reason this son wasn't of our dynasty, and we can come on to why that would be. It'd be very rare. You'd actually have to do something to make that happen. But if this son wasn't of our dynasty, that was a different flag in a different house, the moment we died, he would inherit Dublin, and the game would finish for us because he's not our dynasty. And the key concept for this game is that you have to keep your dynasty going. So how do you keep your dynasty going? Well, there's some kind of basic rules here, which is when you're the king, you want to create heirs to inherit. So what you do is you marry, obviously. Now this is his rather fit wife, who's probably about 40, but she doesn't look it. She's had a fair bit of work done, I think. But if you click on her, now she is a completely different dynasty. Okay, But that's okay, she will be, unless you're going to marry within your own family, you know, have a nice bit of incest, which for this game isn't actually recommended, and we'll come on to why. Although in real life, of course, I'm sure it's loads of fun. What you do is you marry someone usually from another dynasty, but the rule of the game is, assuming you're the bloke, the sons that you produce will automatically be of your dynasty. In fact, not just the sons, all the kids. So if we look at this guy's children down here, there's his son, he's of the dynasty, and there's his other two sons, they're of the dynasty. So at the moment you can be happy, because you can say to yourself, right, well, I've got 3 potential heirs. Even if this bloke suddenly kicks the bucket tomorrow, I've got another heir, and they're all going to be in my dynasty. And why are they going to be in my dynasty? Well, because they're sons and they're produced by me and I'm the bloke. Okay, now if it had been the other way around, if I had actually been a bird who owned Dublin and had married outside of my dynasty, then the sons produced would follow the outside dynasty route, which again would mean that my heirs would be outside of my dynasty and the game would end. So you want to make sure that your heirs are going to fall from your dynasty, and that's the first thing you want to check when you start this game. So you want to go through and you want to say, well, here's the dynasty here, here's my heir, he's my son, check him, yeah, he's all part of my dynasty as well. Now you can get an overriding look at your dynasty, which again is your family, by clicking on that, and it gives you a dynasty tree, and you can sort of drag this up and down and in and out, blah blah blah. So this gives you this is where you are, and there you can see your sons, blah blah blah, there. And you can see other things here where you've got your brother, he's also had a kid, he's also of your dynasty, etc, etc, etc. There's various things here as well. If you go up here, you can have a click of the family tree, which again just shows you the immediate family tree for you. This sometimes is quite useful just to work out a path of how someone's got to producing their son. So there's us, there's our fit wife, there's our dad, and there's our 3 kids. The other thing to worry about then is a thing called a realm tree, and that is just, as opposed to dynasty, this thing just shows you what you own, and currently that's you with 2 vassals, and we're going to come on to that next. Okay, so this was just a really brief outline of the concept of dynasties, but this is what you're going to try and do when you first come in. You set your objective probably to become King of Ireland, so you're going to start going off trying to fabricate some claims, create some duchies, walk in and do all that. But in the immediate time you want to start looking at your family and your dynasty to make sure that your heir is going to be able to inherit. Sorry, the heir who does inherit is actually one of your dynasty. On the next video, because I'm waffling on a lot, I'm going to then carry on with this screen, and I'm going to talk about what these things to do with the traits are and why they matter, and then we'll also then talk about sort of what some of these buttons start to do here, where you have your councillors and you have your laws and you have your technology. Technology is a bit of a it's actually quite simple in the end, but it's been terribly done here, I think, in my opinion. One of the few things that's been terribly done. And then there's loads of other stuff here, and we'll hopefully go into more detail onto that. But you know, if you're ever lost, always click on your portrait. It comes back to you, it shows where you are, and again, it shows what titles you currently have. And as we know, we currently own the county of Dublin, and we have an heir, and he's of our dynasty, so everything is looking like a bed of roses at the moment. I hope some of that helped to explain the idea of realms, counties, duchies, kingdoms, dynasties, and I'll continue in the next video.